Hello, and welcome back to my venture across the United States, where I'm visiting each state and covering some of the urban legends and local mythology present in them. Today, we're visiting Florida, the Sunshine State. While the state is famous for its beaches, amusement parks, and hot, sunny climate, it has a long history preceding its time as a tourist destination, which lingers on throughout the peninsula. Through this history, you'll find eerie stories that give you a glimpse into the state's past. So come with me today, as we look far beyond the horrors and atrocities that you hear have been committed by Florida man, and we take a deep dive learning about the ghouls and monsters that might lie within the walls of some of Florida's most infamous places. Number 1 is the St. Augustine Lighthouse. St. Augustine lays claim to being the oldest continually occupied city in the nation, being occupied since the Spanish settled them in 1565. This city was the capital of Spanish Florida for 200 years during this time, until Spain ceded Florida to the United States in 1819. It's only fitting that a city with such a long history would have its fair share of short stories. There are so many, in fact, that I could probably do an entire video on St. Augustine alone. The St. Augustine Light Station, or Lighthouse, specifically, is an active lighthouse that finished construction in 1874 and houses a number of superstitions within its walls, openly hosting ghost tours and paranormal investigators alike. The legend begins when the 1870s superintendent for the lighthouse realized the construction of the tower was going to take longer than expected, and therefore moved his wife and daughters from Maine to Florida to be with him. One day, the superintendent's daughter and their friends were pushing each other in a rail car used to move supplies from the pier to the lighthouse when the rail car toppled over. An onlooker witnessed this event, but he was only able to save the kids' friends, and the lighthouse keeper's daughters passed away. It's said that since this accident, visitors and workers at the lighthouse station have reported hearing and seeing the daughters of the original lighthouse keeper playing in the woods behind the light station. While it might not be so scary to hear some kids playing outside in the middle of the night, the lighthouse has more to offer than the ghost of these kids, sadly. There's another presence that supposedly lives in the lighthouse known as the Man. The Man is said to be the lighthouse keeper which watched the station in the 1850s named William Russell. People knew that the Man said he was passionate about his work, to the point of being protective of the lighthouse. This behavior seems to transfer directly to his ghost as well, which is said to lurk in the basement of the lighthouse, giving people a sense of foreboding. Some also hypothesize that the ghost could be Joseph Andrew, a keeper who suffered an accident and fell from the tower. Visitors who have seen the specter of Joseph Andrew and claim that it's him say that he doesn't even know that he died, and that he passes the time by smoking cigars in his quarters. Personally, I've been to this lighthouse, and I didn't see anything out of the ordinary while I was there. But maybe if I visited in the middle of the night, I'd feel different about the sounds and smells I encountered while wandering within the walls. Number 2 is the Devil's School. While I would consider Florida, in general, a place that I wouldn't want to get stuck, the Annie Little Elementary School is a strong no thanks in my book. Jacksonville houses this old school which has a fair share of urban legends surrounding it that supposedly stem from true horror stories that occurred there. Built in 1891 as a small schoolhouse, the site was expanded in 1915 when Duval County decided to allot money towards the construction of new brick schoolhouses. In 1957, the school was named the Annie Little Elementary School in honor of a principal it had, before shutting down only a few years later because of the proximity to highway systems, making it a poor environment for learning and a hard place to get to. Verified reports claim that the structure has fallen into disrepair and that it's now home to vandals, homelessness, and drug use, which occurs on site. But beyond this, many myths also exist regarding what lies within the wall of the school. Some myths say that a cannibalistic principal and janitor had worked together at the school to consume students of the school. Other claims say that children in the boiler room were tortured by this duo. Others claim that within the walls of this building, the ghosts of students who died in an accident in the boiler room, or that had been tortured by the janitor and principal, roam the halls, looking to haunt those who enter the decrepit home. As wild as it would be to be able to verify claims of these events, there really isn't any evidence to suggest that any of this ever happened, regardless of who was at fault. What is verified, though, is that there have been a number of arrests of children, vandals, and drug users which have trespassed onto the property in search of these myths and legends, or some good old spray painting. Number 3 are the ghosts in the Biltmore Hotel, Coral Gables. Looking up the Biltmore Hotel in Coral Gables, you're far more likely to find pictures of opulent dining rooms, a massive pool, palm trees, and golf courses than you are to find ghost stories. But if you look deeply enough, accounts of odd happenings in the Coral Gables Hotel are actually quite abundant. Built in 1926 by George Merrick, the founder of Coral Gables, the hotel quickly became a location synonymous with opulence, boasting a number of feats such as the then largest pool in the entire world. Despite this, though, it didn't stop horrors from occurring in the hotel that slowly gave rise to rumors of otherworldly beings dwelling on the premises. Only 3 years after the opening of the hotel, a loud party on the 14th floor of the hotel was taking place. The whole floor had quickly become a gambling den frequented by high-ranking mobsters, so the clientele weren't exactly upstanding citizens. Apparently, a disagreement occurred, which led to a mobster known as Tom Walsh, a New York City mob affiliate, to get shot and killed. In 1952, even more deaths occurred on the premises when the Biltmore was turned into a temporary military hospital, after which it became a hospital for veterans until 1968, until it fell into abandonment for a while. It wasn't until 1987 that the Biltmore was reopened after significant renovations. While the renovations returned the hotel to its former glory, it appears that they couldn't quite get rid of the spirits trapped within the walls of the hotel. Many guests, to this day, report sightings of Tom Walsh, also known as Fatty Walsh, or a similar figure being seen walking around strutting his old gangster stuff before vanishing into thin air. They seem to paint him as a playful, but pretty nice guy, honestly. It's said that occasionally he'll hold a door open for a pretty waitress with her hands full, but also that he'll write messages on mirrors and press elevator buttons that will take guests to the wrong floor. One chilling report speaks of a woman who got off on the 13th floor with her husband, but the door shut and trapped her husband in the elevator before taking him down to the 4th floor. Apparently, while this woman was there alone, she heard speaking quietly down the halls and laughter, and then she started to smell cigar smoke. Hey, sounds kind of like a gangster to me, right? Despite these stories, the real spooky stuff comes from the hotel's history as a hospital during World War II. Stories from kids who snuck into the hospital after it closed claim that they saw severed limbs inside of the building and when sneaking around at night. Kids also claimed that they'd see people walking around the hospital, except they weren't walking. Their feet weren't touching the ground at all, actually. They were floating. They also reported getting touched on the shoulder and turning around to see men in army uniforms. Trespassers have also reported hearing noises like a party, only to open doors and hear these noises stop abruptly, seeing nothing in front of them. Recently, while a lot of this creepy stuff isn't well reported, it's said that many guests see people playing piano or walking around a corner only to have those guests disappear into thin air. So, pretty creepy, right? I certainly wouldn't want to run into a floating guest at the Biltmore. That being said, if I had to spend eternity somewhere, I don't think I'd mind if that place had 24/7 room service and a huge pool to lounge in. Number 4 is the Skunk Ape. I'm pretty sure every state we visit on this tour of the USA is going to leave us with something reminiscent of Bigfoot, and Florida isn't any exception. In Florida, there's supposedly a creature dwelling in the Everglades with a really bad scent that may be among Bigfoot's southernmost cousins. They call this creature the skunk ape. Supposedly, this creature is 7 feet tall with a reddish-brown coat and long arms. At night, if you shine a light on the creature, they say that its eyes reflect a red or green glow in the dark. The skunk ape has, since Europeans arrived, been part of the lore in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, and even prior to this, a similar creature which smelled bad and was physically extremely dominant was described by the native Seminole folklore. Among the earliest modern sightings of the skunk ape, there's one that took place in Big Cypress National Preserve when a couple of hunters in 1957 claimed a skunk ape trashed their campsite, with similar reports following in adjacent counties between 1963 and 1979. Later, in 1997, international tourists on a bus going through Florida claimed they saw a Bigfoot-like creature as well. In 1998, one of the more infamous encounters occurred, with a cameraman supposedly snapping 27 photos of the creature while posted in a homemade hunting stand in a tree. The cameraman, named Dave Shelley, now runs the Skunk Ape Research Center. Finally, in 2000, a woman snapped a photo of the supposed skunk ape, mailing it to her local sheriff's department in Sarasota, Florida. The woman was apparently convinced that she had witnessed an escaped orangutan. This leads into the prevailing theory that the skunk ape is nothing more than a small population of wild orangutans that live in southern Florida and that appear a bit different because of the limited population that bred together over a long time, becoming a subspecies. However, this doesn't quite make up for the whole 7-foot-tall thing, or the fact that the skunk ape is a biped, which is why many believe this is more likely another species of Bigfoot. Number 5 is the grave of the Tallahassee witch. Bessie, or Elizabeth Budd Graham, was 23 when she died. It's said that Bessie was poisoned by a relative, leading to her having a slow and painful death, which caused her soul to remain on Earth even after all of these years. On her obelisk, she has an epitaph that is part of a poem by Edgar Allan Poe, which suggests that she was distrusted by the community because she was a prideful individual, possibly making them happy about her death. You can tell something is off about the grave if you pay close attention when you enter the graveyard. Bessie's grave faces west, but all of the other graves in the cemetery faced east, as is Christian custom. People take this oddity and use it to make the claim that Bessie was in fact a witch, or at least that the people at the time of her burial claimed that she was one. On top of this, odd occurrences have occurred to people who visited her grave. People tell stories of seeing a young woman weeping in front of the grave. There are also a number of people who have visited Bessie's grave who claim they saw Bessie in their dream the following night. They also claim that a vase next to Bessie's obelisk, which has water inside, will show you the reflection of dark creatures or a figure if you look into it in the evening. Visitors who come to pay their respects to Bessie often leave an offering for the witch. They place coins on top of the stoop of her obelisk and shells in a nearby vase as an offering to her. Personally, I'd probably avoid visiting because it's set on full moon nights. Passerbys occasionally see a group of witches, or some people at least, in some sort of ceremony surrounding Bessie's obelisk. Thank you all for coming with me on a beach day today. I'm sure glad Florida Man didn't make the list because I don't know if I had the spine to do a docu-series on him. If you like this video, go ahead and fly a banner over the beach telling people to hit that subscribe button and give it a like. Also, go ahead and hit the alert button so that those people are told when my video drops on the state of Georgia next week. If nothing else, on your next stay at the Biltmore, make sure that you get a room on the first or, second floor. Avoid 13 and 14. I think that would be good for you. On top of this, maybe consider visiting a different lighthouse on your next pass through St. Augustine. But, most importantly, whether you're being chased by a gator, or a skunk ape, or a ghost in Florida, or maybe some old doctor in Coral Gables, don't you ever forget, it's always story time.